Welcome in. It is week 9 of the fantasy football season here on Run the League, and we are talking stardom, sit-em for week 9 of the fantasy football season. Let's go get a win this week. Let's do it. All right, guys, welcome into stardom, sit-em. Let's start with the quarterback position. My first start this week is Tua Tagovailoa. Of course, I got to preface this by saying you start the top 10 quarterbacks, top 8 specifically. You start those guys. But if you have questions at the quarterback position and you need to make an adjustment, many of these guys can help you, I think, win this week and possibly be top 10 guys, maybe even top 5 guys for the week. So Tua Tagovailoa, he takes on the Houston Texans this week. The Texans defense has been really bad. And therefore, I think Tua's going to have a good performance. So far this year, Tua's done a really nice job against the bad defenses that he's played. Didn't play well against the Bills last week. I understand that, but the Bills are a different animal defensively than the Houston Texans. I expect the Dolphins to be able to put up some points. It would not shock me at all if Tua had, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game, potentially ended up being a top 10, top 8 type quarterback. So he's a guy I'd be very interested in playing this week if you have questions at the position, or maybe you have Tom Brady on a bye week. He would be a nice option to start. Next start that I like, Joe Burrow takes on the Cleveland Browns. I think this is a matchup where the Browns are going to try to take away the Bengals' rushing attack, and therefore Joe Burrow is going to be asked to throw the ball quite a bit. I don't know how productive he will be as far as, I don't know that he'll throw for 400 yards, but I do think that he will have the ability to throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns, maybe 250, 300 yards, and give himself a chance to have a really nice fantasy day against a pretty mediocre secondary for the Cleveland Browns. The Steelers left some points on the table last week. I don't think the Bengals will leave points on the table this week, especially coming off of their very disappointing loss to the New York Jets this past weekend. My start of the week at the quarterback position, this has a lot to do with having a decent week last week that could have been a whole lot better, and I think it translating to this week. So Carson Wentz was the quarterback 11 this past week against the Tennessee Titans, and if you watch that game, he was terrific through 3 quarters of that game. Then in the fourth quarter, threw the pick 6, and then threw another interception in overtime that really limited his day. But I do think that this week against the Jets, it sets up really well for him and for the whole Colts offense to have a lot of success. And so therefore, I think Wentz will be a really nice start for you this week, especially, again, if you have a guy like Tom Brady on bye. My sits this week at the quarterback position, Matt Ryan takes on the New Orleans Saints this week. Don't love the matchup. The Saints have a really good defense, and I think with the loss of Jameis Winston, the Saints will turn into even more of a running football team and really focus on their defense. So I just don't see the Falcons scoring a lot of points in this matchup. Therefore, it limits Matt Ryan's ceiling this week. I don't love Derek Carr against the New York Giants. The Giants played really well against the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. They slowed down Patrick Mahomes in that passing attack to an extent, and I think Mahomes in that attack is better than Derek Carr and the Raiders. I think they'll slow down the Raiders again. I expect that game to be in the 20s. So therefore, it's really going to come down to, does Derek Carr throw 3 touchdowns, or do they run in 3 touchdowns and Carr doesn't have a great day? I'm kind of thinking that he's probably going to have 1 touchdown, maybe an interception. I just don't think this is the best matchup for Derek Carr this week. My top guy that I'm worried about, of course, I do this every week. It's a guy who is inside the top 10. Definitely a guy you're going to start, but is a guy that I'm just a little bit down on this week. I think it could be a disappointing week for him, and that guy's Lamar Jackson. He takes on the Vikings this week, and I just think that it's going to be a running and defensive battle. I think both teams are going to focus on running the football. Now, that could mean that Lamar Jackson has, one of his epic 100-yard rushing games and a touchdown, which would be great for fantasy. But I think they're going to hand the ball off. I think it'll be more like he has, 200 total yards of offense, and then it will come down to how many touchdowns does he have. And the Vikings defense has played pretty well, and so has the Ravens. So I think it'll be a defensive battle. So you play him, but I would just say, I have some concerns about Lamar Jackson this week. Moving on to the running backs, the guys that I like to start this week, Elijah Mitchell taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Elijah Mitchell is the guy for the 49ers, and unfortunately for Trey Sermon, that's just the way this season is going to go, and they're going to keep giving the ball to Elijah Mitchell. We will see when Jeff Wilson comes back if he eats into some of the role, especially in the red zone. Wilson's supposed to be practicing this week, but probably won't come back till mid to late November. So this is Mitchell's job, and we saw the Cardinals really struggle with the combination of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones last week. So therefore, I think Elijah Mitchell will probably get 25 carries, probably have 100 yards, and probably another touchdown for Elijah Mitchell against the Cardinals this week. A guy who I mentioned on the waiver wire I also like as a start this week, Jeremy McNichols. Okay, so the Titans take on the Rams. Yes, the Titans added Adrian Peterson, but I'm wondering if Adrian Peterson comes in and can't really, understand the full playbook. I just don't know if he'll be ready to come in and take on 20 carries this week. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it'll take him time to really get back into football shape and take time for him to get acclimated with the offense. So therefore, I think this will be the week where McNichols probably has his biggest role. And so therefore, I really like him as a start this week. My start of the week at the running back position is Myles Gaskin. So here's the numbers on Myles Gaskin. Over the past 4 weeks, he's finished as the running back 3, the running back 48, the running back 8, and then the running back 33. Do you see a trend there? I do. So this is a rebound week for Myles Gaskin. This is a week where he finishes inside the top 10. And against the Texans, I think he will at least score 1 touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns for the Miami Dolphins this week. My sits at the running back position, I do not like Mike Davis at all against the Saints. Saints have a great defense. Again, I think they're going to be relying on that defense to carry them now with Jameis Winston out for the season. And I just think Mike Davis has lost his role. I think Cordero Patterson is the running back that you want in Atlanta, and I think this is a bad matchup for Mike Davis this week. Bears running back Khalil Herbert, he takes on Pittsburgh this week, and Herbert's been really solid for fantasy up until last week. He didn't have a great outing against the 49ers a week ago, and I think against Pittsburgh, it just gets even more tough. The Steelers' defense has been really good, really stout against the run. I think they're going to cause problems for the Bears, and therefore I don't think Herbert is a great option this week. I would try to do everything I could to try to play another running back on my roster. And then a top guy that I'm worried about, and I kind of mentioned this with when I talked about Joe Burrow as a start this week, it's Joe Mixon. And Joe Mixon against Cleveland, obviously you're going to play him, but I am concerned that he gets slowed down a little bit, that the Bengals have to throw the ball a lot, that Mixon has one of those inefficient 22 carries for 60-yard games, and if he doesn't get into the end zone once or twice, he's just not going to have a very relevant fantasy performance. So a little concerned about Mixon. Again, you're going to play him, but have some doubts. Moving on to the wide receiver position, my starts this week, I really like Chase Claypool taking on the Bears this week. Claypool is definitely a boomer bust wide receiver at this point, probably more of a wide receiver 3 now. It's just weird. When Juju went out, there was this expectation that he was going to start to get all of Juju's targets, but it's actually gone to Pat Freiermuth. He's been a guy that's gotten a lot of targets, and then Deontay Johnson is just ripping off double-digit target games every week, it seems. So it's hurt Claypool a lot. I'll admit that. But I think this week he can get over the top of the Bears' defense. I think, Jalen Johnson's a pretty good corner who will be locked on Deontay Johnson for most of the day. And so I think Claypool could have an opportunity here to have a really nice performance against the Bears. The next wide receiver I like is T. Higgins. He takes on Cleveland, and this goes right in line with kind of how I think that game will go. I think the Bengals will have more success through the air. Higgins has been a target machine. He just hasn't broken out completely yet. And I think it could be this week. I think this could be the week where he has that 100-yard, a touchdown or 2 performance and really shows that he's a legit wide receiver 2 for the Bengals. And for the rest of the year, he's probably a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, who could have some boomer bust performances. More booms than busts, though, because the targets have been pretty consistent. The next guy that I like at the wide receiver position, Jalen Waddle. Again, really like the Dolphins offense this week. Waddle, a target machine, continues to build targets and targets and targets. Yes, he hasn't exploded for the big yardage game yet, but he's been reliable in the red zone, has caught touchdowns this year, and has been a reliable target for Tua. And so therefore, against Houston, it's a great matchup. I think he could have one of those big performances where he breaks off, finally, maybe he breaks off that 60-yard touchdown that we were kind of used to seeing Waddle do when he was at Alabama. My start of the week this week is Michael Pittman taking on the Jets. Again, I like the Colts offense this week. I think Michael Pittman will have another really good performance, especially with T.Y. Hilton missing this game as well. I just think the Colts offense is due to have a really nice game against the Jets this week. My sits at the wide receiver position, Laviska Shenault, I'm out. I really like Shenault as a prospect, but I got to be out now. He has not performed up to the level that we thought he would with DJ Chark being gone. So for now, Shenault's either going to be on my bench or he's going to be dropped, and it's really unfortunate because I had some high hopes for Shenault this season. Tyler Boyd taking on the Browns. This kind of contradicts my belief that the Bengals are going to throw the ball a ton in this game, but I don't really trust Tyler Boyd outside of being a guy who will catch 5 for 50, which is okay, but I don't think he's got that high upside that Higgins and Chase have. I expect those two to have big performances, and I think Boyd will kind of be an afterthought this week against the Browns. The top guy that I'm worried about this week at the wide receiver position is CeeDee Lamb. Now, CeeDee Lamb had a nice performance this week, and so did Amari Cooper, but I really do think that against the Broncos, the Cowboys will be able to run the ball more effectively. We'll see if Dak is back. That's another factor to this whole equation, but I think the Cowboys will get back to that run game, that dominant run game with Zeke and Tony Pollard, and be able to run on the Broncos, which will take away some of that high upside that CeeDee normally has with every matchup. Moving on to the tight end position, I like Tyler Higbee this week against the Titans. I think the Rams will be able to put up some points on the Titans, probably 30 plus. Therefore, Tyler Higbee has a nice opportunity to get into the end zone this week, which is what everyone's been waiting for, because Tyler Higbee, honestly, for as good as that offense has been, he's been pretty disappointing for the Rams this year. Dallas Goedert against the Chargers this week. Goddard is a guy who is getting all the attention from Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles will have to throw the ball a lot more this week because I do believe they'll be down a little bit more against the Chargers. Chargers are looking for kind of redemption after losing to the Patriots this past week. So I think they'll be far better, and I think the Eagles will be far worse. So therefore, I think that passing game will have to ramp up a little bit with Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert. My start of the week at the tight end position, though, is Kyle Pitts taking on the Saints. While I don't think Atlanta will have a great offensive performance, and I don't think Matt Ryan will have a great performance, I do think they'll have to throw the ball some, and I think Kyle Pitts is the guy who benefits the most from that. Tough news with Calvin Ridley, kind of just, I guess, retiring for a little bit while he tries to figure out, his next steps health-wise, mental health-wise. And so, thoughts and prayers with him. But right now, as far as the Falcons go, Kyle Pitts is going to be the guy that they're going to have to target and the guy that they're going to have to rely on until Ridley comes back into the fold. My sit this week at the tight end position is the same guy as last week. So I told you to sit Hunter Henry last week. He finished tight end 30, so that was a pretty good idea to sit him. I think against the Panthers this week, he is also a sit. Do not play Hunter Henry. I think Jonnu is starting to get more into the fold in that offense, and I just think the Patriots are going to want to run the ball, and I think this will be a defensive battle a little bit for both of these teams. So those are the starts and sits this week. I'm hoping everyone can go out there and get a win this week. I know it's a very important week. For myself, I'm 4-4 in one of my leagues. I have a couple other leagues I'm doing better in, but one of my main leagues, I'm 4-4 in. Really need to get a win. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who are also trying to get a win, trying to turn the momentum back in your favor. And this is a good way to start that. Trying to get those starts and sits right, trying to make sure you have a perfect lineup set for this week to try to go out and pull off an upset or just get a big, much-needed win for the week. So be sure to check out the Fantasy Football Show on Thursday. And, of course, Waiver Wire runs on Tuesday and this show as well on Tuesday. So For Grayson Grunhafer, this has been Run the League on NFL on 365 Sports.